What's up, everyone? Welcome into the Dear Miss Fantasy Show with me, your host, Tera Roberts. This is the official mailbag show for Player Profiler. It is Wednesday, July 23rd. Oh, P.S. I have a birthday next week in case anyone wants to wish me happy birthday, July 29th. But here I am today, live, taking your questions, and we're going to dive right in. We got a packed topic again. It's more packed. I always say that every single week, but it's more packed legitimately today because we are doing training camp updates and late round dart throws. But honestly, it's going to be mostly training camp updates because good God, they have come in. Wow. So, I mean, I was just literally, I had to double check 5 minutes before the show because so many updates coming through. And I'm like, I want to make sure I get the latest stuff, make sure that I'm not contradicting myself. In fact, that happened. And I am so happy that I caught something right before I went live because there was something with San Francisco that happened. And it is very, very intriguing. You wouldn't think so at first glance, but we're going to talk it through here. So let's just dive right into all of these training camp updates because wow. Ones that you are not from today, but they are from before we actually last talked. So let's hit those real quick. Chris Godwin not practicing. We do not have a timeline on this. If you guys follow me on social media, I've talked about it a couple of different places here. This right here, we found out that he had a second procedure in terms of a surgery, and that we didn't know about, and that does affect his timeline here. We don't really have a timeline here. And this is why, unfortunately, I was a little bit concerned about Godwin. I think sometimes when we look at players getting injuries and we're like, it wasn't an ACL, so it's not that bad. He's going to be fine and good to go once he's recovered. Often that's not the case, right? So this is why I was a little okay with taking a bit more of a Mecca Buka. I know that the ADP, it felt a little bit aggressive considering we were thinking hey, Godwin's going to be back. This is going to be a wide receiver 3 situation. He's probably going to get that JSN treatment, right? We all made that comparison. It's oh, okay, well, they drafted a player in the first round. They don't need a receiver this year. He's going to be fantastic next year once they move on from somebody. It'll open up. But there might be the opportunity here for him this year because they have stated that they don't feel super rushed. They being the Bucs don't feel super rushed to push Godwin along because they feel good with their receiving core, and Emeka has looked fantastic. So there's that. Also, do not underestimate the impact on Mike Evans as well. I've talked about Mike Evans multiple times in the offseason here. We're all going to be clamoring to jump at Emeka. But at the same time, you do have to remember Mike Evans' ADP is not going to drastically jump because he is in a unique little area where there's not a lot of wiggle room for him to move up, and because he has the effect of the fact that he is 32, right? But when we look at him last year, he did not show any signs of progression. This is a man who had a hamstring injury. And when it comes to 30-year-old receivers, you get those hamstring injuries, Cooper Kupp, hey, you get those hamstring injuries, you come back, you're not yourself, you look slow, you're not moving the same. That was not the case with Mike Evans. The man not only came back and looked like himself, he handled more workload because of Godwin's injury. The man was out there with double-digit targets, just absolutely killing it. In terms of receivers that I trust in the league, Mike Evans is just right up there with anybody. So that's another one that I feel super comfortable leaning into. Another sad injury update, Brandon Ayuk. This is not unexpected. It should not have been unexpected. There is no timeline on him. I'm sure the 49ers are frustrated. It's probably a combination of one. He does need extra time, and 2, he was yapping quite a bit during the offseason. A lot of yap, maybe not a lot of recovery. But when we're looking at no timeline here, my expectation that I've been working with and why I have been drafting Ricky Pearsall like a lunatic was that we were not looking at a situation where we were going to say, okay, maybe Ayuk starts off the pup and misses the first month. No, man, this feels very much like a mid-season return and then a slow roll kind of situation. And hopefully we can get him ready by the playoffs. I don't feel good about this one. I would like to be proven wrong on this, right? Don't hold my feet to the fire if I'm wrong because I'm not a psychic. I can't predict somebody's injuries, right? But the timeline isn't feeling super good. And I think we need to move forward with other people. Now, the good news is Ayuk's ADP is just steady dropping, right? There's not a lot of confidence in this. So if you want to draft him, stash him on your bench. You're not going to have to draft him as a starter. You're going to get a nice little discount. I'm not mad at you for that. Personally, I'm not doing it. I am stuck with him on a dynasty team, but in redraft, I'm just not going to mess with it. Ricky Pearsall, talked a little bit last week. I talk about him all the time, to be honest, but talked a little bit last week about the fact that he's dealing with a hamstring injury. And this was frustrating because I try not to be a hypocrite. Now, sometimes it is different when it's younger receivers that can pop back from hamstrings a little bit easier than the older ones. But at the same time, hamstrings just don't discriminate in the way that they attack people. So Pearsall getting that hamstring injury in the offseason did make me a little bit like, oh, wait a minute. Because it's often that we see guys, deal with hamstring in the off season, ramp up and be fine for week one. They go a couple weeks and then it recurs, right? It hits again and you miss several weeks. That's not unusual for anybody. So that does make me a tiny bit apprehensive, but all things considering here, and the fact that of what the reality we are looking at with Brandon Ayuk and the ADP not being super aggressive on Ricky Pearsall, it's a risk that I am willing to take on that one. Jauan Jennings, another update for him. Contract dispute. Obviously, he's not happy. I get it. He is not paid for the production overall that he had last season, but that production didn't exist before. The contract was fair. He did show up as expected. This was one where I didn't feel like he had a ton of leverage because this is not I'm going to cry my way out and somebody's going to trade for me. You simply don't have that value yet, right? Because of the situation and the circumstance of you just not coming on until last year, really. And the fact that he is Kyle Shanahan's boy. Kyle Shanahan has his favorites. He clearly likes Jauan Jennings and has a good amount of trust in him. So I figured that this would either be worked out or regardless, Jennings was going to show up and it wasn't going to be an issue. It's not a hold in. He's out there practicing. So yay, we are good to go on Jauan Jennings. If you want to lean towards Jennings a little bit more than Pearsall, that's understandable. My preference towards Pearsall was because of the fact that if and when Brandon Ayuk comes back, it does seem like it will affect Jennings a little bit more in his role. But regardless, we're not going to be super concerned about that just because of how everything is trending with Ayuk and the fact that ADPs are beautiful for both Pearsall and Jennings. Moving on for the 49ers, but we will get back to the 49ers in a little bit because we had more injury news. Jacob Cowing injured his hamstring, which may not seem serious to you, but it does apply to a mailbag question that I got later. So we'll talk about that in a second. More training camp updates. Let's do one more. And before we take a quick little break, we'll talk about Terry McLaurin here. Contract dispute. This was one that I said I was not super concerned about, but I am hoping this gets worked out quicker than later, right? He did not show up for training camp. I am growing a little bit more concerned here. I was trying to be optimistic because I thought that Washington would be quicker to rectify this. I didn't feel like this was a situation that McLaurin would just let go because he does have more leverage. He does have ground to stand on. And ideally, this would be a big final contract for him at his age. Not to say that he's any close to, being of age that he'll need to retire or anything, but this is the last theoretical big extension that he would be able to get. So it's very important to him. I don't take much account into guys missing OTAs, but when you start to not report for training camp, I do have some fears, and I'm going to say the word, I guess, don't take a shot every time I say hamstring, but I do have fears when guys are not reporting for training camp that's where you start to get in that situation of a lack of preparation leading into the season. Now, Terry's a professional. Maybe he'll be good to go, but you get a lack of preparation heading into the season, and those in-season injuries like hamstrings, they pop up a little more than we would like. I'm a big Terry McLaurin supporter. I love Terry McLaurin with all my soul. And I have been a bit above consensus on him in general because I have always felt like all he needed was a quarterback, and his career as a whole has just been wildly unfair. Him, DJ Moore, just guys that are just so talented, but have been on the struggle bus in terms of their teams and quarterbacks. And Jane Daniels coming in there, finally somebody that could utilize Terry McLaurin as the weapon that he is. That production felt real and sticky for me. So I was willing to go to bat and be a little bit higher than consensus on him. But this is concerning, and it is making me kind of slow my roll a little bit and just kind of be a little bit cautious and hope that this doesn't extend too far. We do need to talk quick about how this affects Deebo Samuel, because while Terry's not out there, Deebo is out there growing that connection, getting that connection with Jaden Daniels. And we've got video evidence, right? We've had video evidence in this offseason, and people have taken it in like weird ways. People like to make fun of Deebo. He's an off and on kind of guy. I made a video, a short little video talking about Deebo a couple of days ago. And it is what it is with him, right? And I appreciate that he is at least vocal and honest about it. He occasionally, maybe like every other year, doesn't come in super motivated to camp for whatever reason. And out of shape has been a thing that has happened with him. And when you come in out of shape, you go into the season out of shape, and you look out of shape throughout the season. And it just has worked out that way. Now, in times where he's come in and he's locked in and he's good to go, we've had good seasons out of him. And I do want to preface good seasons, because I got a comment on one of my videos talking about Deebo saying, he had one good season. He's not him. He's washed. I think sometimes we need to like reel it in when we're talking about good seasons. Everybody is not Justin Jefferson. Everybody is not putting up Jamar Chase numbers. Okay. A good season for a wide receiver. And Deebo is a special receiver because of his usage with the 49ers. If it's like 900 yards, you might look at somebody else and say, but for Deebo and the way that he is utilized, 900 yards, 800 yards, and touchdown opportunities, rushing upside and whatnot, it all combines out to an overall good season for the way that he is used in that offense. So when we're looking at Deebo Samuel, yes, he had one massive, big 1,400 yard season, but he's had multiple other fine seasons. He had an excellent rookie season. He had another season where he was a borderline wide receiver 1 as well. And the fact is that he is a wide receiver 2 by nature. So we have to contextualize when we say good seasons. We're talking about a guy who is naturally more of a wide receiver 2. Again, not a Jamar Chase, and there's nothing wrong with that, okay? So Deebo Samuel bounce back season, I think, is in action. They had a nice little video of him with Jaden Daniels getting a deep ball from Jaden Daniels, and he looks fit, people. He does not look fat. He looks like he was hitting the gym. I'm buying it. I like it. Looking over next to the chat here, want to say what's up to everybody in the chat. What's up, Delco Dave, Jerry Nelson, Albert Moroccan, John Heath, Buy and Sell You, and Tootsie Pop, Rachel. Let's do some of these questions real quick here. Oh, thank you for the happy birthday, Jerry. From John Heath, full PPR, 2 keeper league. I am keeping Gibbs and either, this is tough, and either Bucky or Trey McBride. Which one would you keep? So for me personally, I am still going to lean towards Bucky on this one, just because, and it's tempting. It's super close here, especially because we've got such a clear cutoff between, I include George Kittle in the elite tight ends that we want to be targeting early. And then everything after that is a clear drop off, right? And we're seeing the ADP is it's gonna rise on George Kittle. So if you were investing early, yay for you. You're right along there with me. If not, it's going to go up a little bit early. So this is tough because McBride is a premium tight end for sure. But for me, when I'm looking at the decision of keeping Bucky or Trey McBride, the real thing here is that running back is incredibly thin for me this year. I am a hero RB drafter, true and true. It's my favorite thing to do. I love it more than anything. It hits every time. I have been finding myself going a little bit more robust RB and taking 2 running backs early, just because when I get to those mid rounds, I feel super uncomfortable with the guys that we have to draft at that point. It's not like after Alvin Kamara, man, that's my cutoff right there where things start to get a wee bit shaky in terms of running backs that you're looking at. You've got there's a nice little pocket where you can get some good value at the beginning of the theoretical dead zone. It's like the dead zone to me is so fluctuating, but guys like Kenneth Walker and Alvin Kamara and even Chuba Hubbard are guys that you can get right before, a little cutoff there and feel super comfortable with, provided there's no injury issues. And there's a level of comfort that you have to reach on that, right? You have to be comfortable with potential injuries with Walker. You have to be comfortable with Alvin Kamara and the Saints offense. Chuba Hubbard, Panthers offense, I'm more optimistic because I do have an affinity for Bryce Young. But reality is that, things are shaky and can change on a year-to-year basis, right? But everything after that feels so uncomfortable. So on a normal year, I would say Gibbs and McBride. But in this year in particular, where running back gets so thin so quickly, I probably would go ahead and keep Bucky with Gibbs. From Rachel, hey there. Well, how well do you think JJ McCarthy will do? I don't think I have JJ McCarthy on my notes today. Do I? I don't think I do. So let's go ahead and address that one. I'm super optimistic, man. I did a show 2 days ago with Bob Harris, and we talked with JJ McCarthy talked about JJ McCarthy a little bit. And for reference here, because he is a guy that last year people were very super passionate about, and sometimes being super passionate about a player can cloud your judgment a little bit. I was not a JJ McCarthy truther, like, oh my God, he needs to go first overall. This is the truth. He's the best ever that's ever going to exist. That was not me. But I do like JJ McCarthy a lot this year. I like that they didn't make any questions about it and they just were ready to move on and turn over the offense to McCarthy. I like the system that he's in. When you look at Kevin O'Connell's system, which, the Sean McVay tree that it stems from, it is so insanely quarterback friendly. There's no coincidence. When you look at Kirk Cousins' number, he was a fine quarterback before, but once Kevin O'Connell came in there, he just took Kirk Cousins to another level, right? Sam Darnold, even replacements have come in and done fine. So it's just, when I look at JJ McCarthy and this offense, it's a system that is set up for him to win right off the bat. And then when you're looking across the board, I mean, my God, could you have better weapons? You got, we're going to get Jordan Addison on a little suspension, but we don't expect that to be more than like 3 games there. So we've got Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson. And I've talked about the incoming regression that we are going to get from Aaron Jones. It's going to happen. The goal line touches are going to shift over to Jordan Mason. From a pass catching perspective, Aaron Jones is one of the better receiving backs in the league, even at his age here. So just weapons at the disposal of JJ McCarthy. I do think he's going to thrive, and the ADP is just chef's kiss, super sweet. Totally into it. And I don't think that the ADP is going to rise, despite the fact that we are just getting hype video after hype video after hype video. If you want an MVP off a training camp, man, it would be going to JJ McCarthy. He's been out there looking fantastic. I'm buying in on it for sure here. So it's just a fantastic setup for him. There we go. Oh yeah, when we were talking about Debo, buy and sell, you talking about you draft a wide receiver to be wide receiver 2 to be your wide receiver 2. Yeah, like we got to be realistic about people. You can't. There's certain things that you can't draft. I would love to fill my team up with all the best receivers in the world, but you can't. So you got to make smart decisions about the guys that you were drafting down the board. Your wide receiver 2 is going to be a wide receiver 2. You want him to have upside, but you got to contextualize what a good season is. Before we go on here to our next topic, because again, we have got just a ridiculous amount of stuff to cover here. We're going to continue on the training camp train. We'll be talking about James Cook. But before I talk about James Cook, the Podfather is going to tell you everything that you need to know here. And we are going to take a quick word from our sponsors to hear about the Dynasty Deluxe.
If you play in Dynasty, you need Dynasty Deluxe, our premium package for Dynasty Leaguers. We rank over 300 players, updated every week, all year long. And there's a win now mode and a rebuild mode with superflex and tight end premium controls. and a Dynasty League sync, where you can say, sync down all of my sleeper teams, all my FFPC teams, and then you can browse around your leagues for who has needs, and then you can use our trade finder to see what kinds of trades are happening in leagues that are similar to the one I want to do. Then you can analyze trades using our trade analyzer, which balances the lifetime value, which includes pick values out to like 2028. All of that plus the rookie guide $25 value is included. So if you're just in one Dynasty League, Dynasty Deluxe is well worth it. And use your host's promo code, and you can bump up to all in and get $25 off.
$25 off, great package. Host promo code is super simple. It's just Tera, Tera. If you want it, go ahead and grab it. I said we were talking about James Cook, but actually I want to talk about Joe Mixon first, because I got some opinions on that one. And it's more timely because James Cook news is good news. So let's do the bad news before the good news and just rip off the Band-Aid here. With James Cook put on the NFI list, something just never felt right in my gut about Mixon this offseason. I don't like vague injuries on old running backs, and I have 0 shares of Mixon throughout my offseason best ball drafts. No trading for him and Dynasty. No, I've done a couple redraft, a few redraft leagues, and no Mixon for me. I could not do it, and I caution you not to invest in him because there is going to be a dip in ADP. It's going to come down, and it's going to feel like, you're getting a steal on Joe Mixon. I get that. But when we're talking about, and I hate to, harp on again, running backs heading into the season, but we saw it with Christian McCaffrey last year. When there's these weird lingering injuries before the season starts, he may very well not end up on the PUP list and start off the season healthy, and then just deal with a nagging injury, have to take time off, get into this weird situation. I don't trust it. I would rather go 10,000 directions. It could work out, anything could happen, but that one is not one that I am a fan of here. Unfortunately, we do have to talk about the reality of how to pivot from this. Because again, there are going to be, I've talked about the offensive line struggles that I do anticipate that we're going to have from the Texans, but regardless here, they are still going to move the ball. There's still going to be goal line opportunities. Somebody is going to have value in that offense. Who is it going to be? Reality is, if Nick Chubb is unable to go, I gave it away. If Joe Mixon is unable to go, Nick Chubb is going to get the first crack at being the lead back. It will be his job to lose. That's natural. And we do have to remember, because I know when you're looking at him, you're thinking, Chubb is old and coming off of injury, and he looked legitimately awful last year, and he did look awful last year. That was not the Nick Chubb that we know and love that was on that field. But that is the normal thing. That's a completely normal thing. I give running backs a pass in their first year back from a major injury, regardless of age, because we've seen it time and time again, especially with a running back who does not start off the season healthy. And you got to remember, Nick Chubb did not actually start as a starting running back. We had like a 8 or so. I didn't count it. We had a decent sized gap until he finally came in and was ready to go mid-season there. So expectation that he should have thrived last year, especially with the way that Cleveland offense struggled, there should have been no expectation. We should have expected him to be terrible. And that was the result, right? But when we're looking at him in this Texans offense with a year removed from the injury, there is a very real possibility that Chubb just takes this job and he's good to go. And he's fine. Probably not vintage Nick Chubb, but a fine enough asset, increases his yards per carry, much better than last year, and looks like a decent starting running back here. Dameon Pierce, we can kind of nix out of that. Now, granted, new offensive coordinator, maybe things change, but general perception here, I don't think, unfortunately, that Dameon Pierce would really be in the mix. He was also put on the PUP, but the door is wide open here for Woody Marks. That is exciting. Woody Marks is back on the table. If you were a degenerate, you were, hopefully like Maye drafted him like crazy, and you shed a tear when they signed Nick Chubb, because you knew, shoot, Marks is going to be the third option in that offense, and it's going to be a battle for him to get to be fantasy relevant here. We were hoping he would be the backup to Mixon here, but he's back on the table. He's back on the table. He's somebody that has 3 down back capabilities. You have to look at him for a late round sleeper now. So both of these guys are fine options. I have a hard time believing that Nick Chubb's ADP is going to go through the roof, so you can take a stab at either one. Obviously, when we're looking at Woody Marks being the younger back, the one that is going to, when you look at that entire running back room, be the most explosive back, be the one with the pop. And that opens up the door for you to kind of work your way in and stand out and gain a starting job there, get a little committee work going, and then just pull it away. So pay attention to that one there. Now, moving on to James Cook there. Oh, wait, let me see here. We've got John comment here, real from the chat. John Heath, my 8-year-old wants to know, what's your favorite team? My favorite team is, and that's my son's 8. I love that age. My favorite team is the Green Bay Packers. You wouldn't know it because all my gear is Clemson. Ignore that little Syracuse thing right there. That has nothing to do with me. That's somebody else's in this place. They're not real, but I allow it up there because it's not as if Syracuse is an actual football rival for us. Like, I don't know. So, but I don't mind it up there. And then that other football is like a Dallas Cowboys. I can't point the right direction. That other football is like a Dallas Cowboys football signed by Aikman. But I am a Packers fan. I need to get some Packers memorabilia up here. I wear shirts for it, and obviously I talk about them 24/7. But the problem is I don't invest in memorabilia. It's just whatever shows up here, and then I put it up. But I need to, put my effort into actually showcasing my fandom, but I am a Packers fan. Moving on to James Cook here. Happy update. And this is why I was not worried about this one. Because I drafted him in one of my redraft teams earlier here. He is back. He is at training camp. This was something that I really didn't think we had to worry about because I didn't really think he had the leverage there. Unless we get a contract worked out over the next few weeks. Oh, and by the way, he's not just at training camp holding in, he's at training camp on the field. So we're good. But unless we get a contract worked out over the next few weeks, we might be looking at a very motivated James Cook coming off of a season where he thrived as his first official opportunity as the lead back. And things to note here, because I like to look at running back usage because that's something that is pretty sticky in terms of guys getting over usage and then having an off season. James Cook didn't actually get overloaded with volume last season, so we don't have to worry about that. The carries were not aggressive. We don't have to worry about the residual effect of excessive volume bringing down his performance this year. He had insane touchdowns, and a little natural regression is fine, but those touchdowns, remember, came with Josh Allen getting his typical workload. So it's not like there was a yin or yang kind of situation here. I think this volume and these touchdowns are sticky here. And for what it's worth, for the increase in production that we saw on the ground, we saw a decrease through the air. So there's definitely room for them if they feel like they want to alleviate a little bit of work on the ground, although I don't think it's necessary. But if they did, right, because they do like Ray Davis, and I like Ray Davis, but if they want to do that and adjust a little bit of that, ground and pound workload down, there's still avenues for him to get volume through the air, through less physical usage. So I feel very comfortable with the usage here for James Cook. ADP, we wish we were getting like a tiny bit of a discount here, but he's in a fine area, just right after kind of borderline RB1 here. So that's that. We're good to go on James Cook. At least we got one contract situation solved. And thank you, Jerry. Thank you. I appreciate it. But moving on to Stefon Diggs. He proved me wrong on this one. Not going to lie. I did not think he was going to be ready to go. This training camp news, Jesus Christ, everything's coming in so much. But I did not think that Stefon Diggs was going to be ready to go. He is fully good to go. He's practicing in full training camp, good to go. There's no issue. Again, with guys coming off of ACLs, you want to, utilize some level of caution here. But if the man is on the field, doing everything, full speed, full go, all good to go here. I talked about my apprehension with Diggs last week. It remains the same here. I'm not somebody who's investing in Diggs a lot, but if you're going to go that route, because the ADP is great, and I don't expect it to rise greatly, significantly, because again, he's, Stephon Diggs, older receiver. This is the strategy that I would take. Use him early and prepare to sell him a month and a half in. I think you probably got a good 6 weeks out of him, maybe, and you need to be ready to bail. Maybe a little bit before then. Maybe you start shopping him around after the first month or so. People start hitting bye weeks, and you say, okay, time for me to see if there's any buyers here. The ADP discount you've got is good, but we just have to remember we have not seen this man perform well in the second half of the season in like 3 years. That's a significant amount of time. Now, other guys at training camp here, one thing to note is that it is looking like Kyle Williams is trending towards not being a starter as of right now, but you need to keep your eye on it. That's good news for us because one, if it's looking like, Stephon Diggs, Demario Douglas, and Kayshon Boutte are the, starting 3 in theory here. And that good news means that we're not going to get an aggressive rise on Kyle Williams' ADP. That's good because I do think we should still invest. This is not a thing to panic over because he is not getting the initial starting job here because he looks fantastic out there. There's no need to be concerned that he's not developing at a good pace here. This is probably the function of when we know who's running this offense. It's Josh McDaniels. It's probably just a function of them wanting to give him more time as a rookie to consume the offense before they fully trust him. I think he can get there. So no need to be concerned here. There doesn't look like there's anything he needs to develop on, any kind of issues there. So we're feeling good to go on Kyle Williams there. Other news, quickly, Russ is preparing to, not preparing. He is the starting quarterback. That's not shocking. Jackson Dart looked a little rookie-ish, threw a interception on one of his first throws there. Russ looked like, it's okay. There's one video out there of him underthrowing a ball to Malik Neighbors, who was asking, lay it out there for me. That's chemistry. Russ will get there. It's not as if Russ doesn't, know how to, the moon ball and whatnot. He's fine on a deep throw and whatnot. He will be the starting quarterback here. That particularly doesn't matter for us because we love Malik Neighbors regardless. And we were never investing in Russell Wilson or literally really anybody else in the offense. Maybe you're taking a stab at a running back, but that's basically it, right? So no big news out of New York there. Big-ish news out of, and I think I talked about this last week. I'm not really sure. Indianapolis, Daniel Jones, and I know I didn't talk about this in particular because at the time last week when we did the show, Anthony Richardson was still injured. But as of right now, training camp has started. Anthony Richardson, good to go. Splitting reps with Daniel Jones. It's a true battle, people. I know it's not the battle you wanted, but it is a battle. It is a battle that's happening. And it's critical for us, okay? It's critical for me because I drafted Anthony Richardson in the Scott Fish Bowl as my QB3. So it's personally critical for me, but it's critical for us as a whole because when you're looking at these guys, they're going to be whoever is starting is going to be someone that you're dipping into waivers and getting. If it's super flex, again, that's somebody that you're drafting one of them as your QB3, hoping that it'll hit. Because the reality is that both of these guys have rushing upside. It is what it is. Neither one of them is a fantastic quarterback, and the ADP is not gonna rise on either one of them because there is zero guarantee that whoever starts in week 1 will be starting in week. I'll give it a couple weeks, week 4, 5, 6, like it could flip. Like we have no idea. So we do need to pay attention to this because whoever gets the job, we're going to want to, this is going to be someone who we'll be looking at as a streaming option. And whoever doesn't get the job could be starting in a month or 2. So pay attention to it. It's going to be interesting here. Oh man. But everybody else looks good. Receivers look good. JT looks good. Everybody looks good. There's no issues in Indianapolis. They just got to find a quarterback. I don't think it's on roster, but they're working with what they've got here. Fun news for, you IDP people out there. Me and my one little IDP Dynasty League drafted Travis Hunter. And good news for us, people, he is splitting reps on defense and offense this training camp. Liam Cohen said that it's going to be happening over the first 6 practices or so. They're going to start splitting those reps here, which is super exciting because that's what we want. Our little IDP cheat code here. Yeah, that one is a good one. And then let's move on to something more interesting here as well, more relevant for everybody. Now, Travis Hunter is relevant for everybody because from a receiving perspective, he'll be out there. But let's talk about the LA Chargers here because there's a lot going on in LA besides the fact that Najee Harris, okay, we this is one of those weird things where we don't have a lot of direct information on a timeline. Harbaugh said he'll be all right. If we don't really know exactly what is going on there. It's probably going to make Amarian Hampton's ADP rise up. It is what it is on that one. But the offense as a whole is looking like it might have a chance to kind of make a leap here. Trey Harris in particular has been just really popping in training camp. And this is excellent to see because, you guys might have, and I did too, was really, looking at Ladd McConkey as the guy that I love Ladd. The volume's going to go to Ladd. Everybody else is ancillary. But when we're looking at this now, we do have to, look at the possibility that Trey Harris could actually have an immediate impact. He looks fantastic out there. The Chargers were the first team to start, so we've got a decent start training camp. So we've got a decent amount of information here. Again, if superstar training camp guys mattered, he'd be well on his way to Rookie of the Year. We do have to be wary of the hype, but the Chargers need a clear wide receiver too. We know the role that Ladd McConkey plays. Trey Harris will play very well off of him here. So I like this combination here. We know that the Chargers want to be run heavy, but we have Justin Herbert at quarterback. There is always a path to volume here. Keandre Lambert-Smith has also looked in popping in training camp, which is interesting because, and Quentin Johnson is there too. And I, mildly defended Quentin Johnston in the past because, hey, the production was there. I know people will say it was a little bit fluky, but flukes happen. He did show improvement last year, but there is room for someone else to step up and overcome him here. So Lambert-Smith is an interesting deep one to look at as well. And then we also have a Rondé Gadsden as well that we need to keep our eye on too. Now, moving on to, let me look at some comments here real quick. Jerry Nelson said last week, so in on Calvin Ridley. And I agree with you on that. That kind of goes back to the Deebo Samuel thing that I was talking about. And people don't look at Calvin Ridley in the right context. This is a guy he's the wide receiver 1 on his team, but he's producing wide receiver 2 numbers. And a lot of times, those things get kind of weird for people to, wrap their heads around here. But that's okay. It's okay for him to produce wide receiver 2 numbers. The only time in his career was that one year in Atlanta where he had wide receiver 1 numbers. And at that point, we just have to look at it and say that was more so an outlier year. But he, even when he went to Jacksonville, was a guy who had very steady production, right? So when we look at him and contextualize what we want to expect from him, the fact that he's going to be the wide receiver 1, the fact that we do have, decent expectations for Cam Ward, the fact that the Titans, address their serious offensive line concerns. So we should see some improvement in that area. And at the same time, this is a good situation for him to thrive in terms of Calvin Ridley here. So he's a very safe pick, in my opinion, a safe pick to outperform his ADP, get you a nice low end wide receiver 2 that's going to occasionally give you some nice boom weeks as well, but has enough volume to be very consistent in general. So you're not getting a nice boom bust player. You're getting someone who's a steady wide receiver 2 and has wide receiver 1 upside here. We got to put appreciation on these guys. Not everyone can be a superstar. We have to put appreciation on our steady wide receiver 2s. They need love too. Comment here from Shivani. QJ had a massive game last year and then disappeared the following week. He has potential, but he's frustrating. He just has a lot that he needs to develop. He was and that was something that we low-key kind of knew when he was drafted, and I'm still not entirely sure he's being utilized in the correct way, but in the context of the offense and the personnel they have, he's going to be utilized however they feel like it. And that's how he needs to perform too. He's just still one that still needs some development, right? There's still some things that he needs to work on here. Very frustrating, up and down player here. Potential is there, but again, we want to turn our eyes to Trey Harris more, and then watch for Lambert Smith as well to see if there's something there. And then maybe we get some tight end action finally out of them as well. But we're going to move on to some mailbag questions. We got a lot of mailbag questions this week. You guys were awesome with submitting the mailbag questions. Hit me up on Twitter if you want to submit mailbag questions ahead of time here. From Morgan Grimes with our player profiler. Who is a player with less than 50% ownership who you think should be rostered in 100% of leagues? This is a pick your poison situation for me. You need to roster 49ers depth receivers here. Jacob Cowing was the guy that I was leaning towards. And again, unfortunately, he pulled up with a hamstring injury, literally as Kyle Shanahan was praising him. And I hate that because he was on a good trajectory. You know, Kyle Shanahan can be a little bit particular about his rookies and needing certain things out of them. And so it's not shocking that his usage last year was so limited. It was looking like the way that Shanahan was speaking, obviously using the way that we had Brandon Ayuk as a reference here, that we were going to get some increased usage and some increased trust. He was speaking very glowingly of Cowing, and he pulled up with a hamstring injury. So we need to monitor how serious that is, because we've also got Ricky Pearsall with the hamstring injury. We talked about Brandon Ayuk's lack of a timeline here. So a low rostered player that we can pick up, particularly in Dynasty, and then also late round dart throws as well in redraft, deeper leagues, is going to theoretically come from this 49ers roster, right? Jordan Watkins, rookie as well, had some good reports coming out of OTAs. There's a lot of, allure and rookies and sneaky upside. But again, Kyle Shanahan and his weird behaviors with rookies. Again, hence the limitations of Cowing's usage last season. The one that I am really interested in, and you guys will knock me over the head over this, it is Demarcus Robinson. Hey, Demarcus Robinson is a 49er. He is the vet. He is the most experienced here. He is 30, but he still has juice in the tank because, it's been a very understated career. Not a ton of miles on him here. He's gone on incredible runs. We do have a wee bit of a problem here. And I've defended Demarcus Robinson a ton in terms of people needing to pick him up on waivers and start him, because when he's hot, right? He gets on these little hot streaks where he's pulling in touchdowns left and right. And it's looking like that could be something that could transition over to San Francisco. Unfortunately, the man got a DUI during the offseason and is probably going to be suspended. But maybe, I don't know, maybe the NFL is backed up with doling out punishments. There's a lot for them to do right here. So we don't know exactly when a punishment would come through for him. I don't think he has a history of any kind of issues. So I don't know. We'll see what that is. And, it would also depend on what kind of timeline we're looking at for the injuries to these other guys, when this would come in. But Demarcus Robinson, you're not going to have to spend a lot of money on him, a lot of draft capital or anything. So just keep your eye on that one, because oddly enough, it could be him that does pop up and have good usage in this 49ers offense here. Wish you didn't get that DUI, man. That would have been nice if we had you with no kind of suspension concerns there. Another question here: who is the backup to roster in Miami? Jalen Wright or Ollie Gordon? It's Wright for me. And this one's pretty simple for me. I just don't think that Gordon fits the build of the typical running back in this offense, or has the speed to truly separate himself from Wright. I don't think that Wright's lack of usage as a rookie is an indicator that there's any kind of issue here. Devon Achane stayed healthy. Raheem Mostert still existed. So there was actually no true usage for Jalen Wright. I think, and I was a proponent of Jalen Wright, just because one, Mostert injury prone, Achane smaller back did have an injury rookie season heading into it. So you did kind of like say, hey, if something happens here, injuries happen, Jalen Wright would have a path. That didn't happen. So there was no path for Jalen Wright. If Achane were to go down this year, the easy pivot for the Miami offense in terms of like a 1-for-1 replacement would be Jalen Wright. So Wright is my preference there. From John McClain, Justin Fields or Drake Maye. This one is painful for me because I do love what I saw from Drake Maye. I talked about it earlier when talking about Stephon Diggs. I don't mind how this New England offense is coming together, right? Despite when I'm looking at Drake Maye, despite being thrown into a genuinely awful situation, one of the league's worst offensive lines, no actual wide receiver one, Drake Maye still showed upside from a fantasy perspective last year. New England had a fantastic offseason. We're talking about they solved their offensive line issue. They went out and got a weapon, even though I have my skepticism around Stephon Diggs, they went out and they got themselves the wide receiver one, the best option that they could theoretically get for Drake Maye. They made massive investments across the board on defense here. They really just did a great job of making this a team that could do an easy turnaround real quick here. So I do have a lot of confidence in Drake Maye. And additionally, they've got Henderson as well, who can serve as a very high upside pass catcher for Drake Maye. He's got that rushing upside as well. Drake Maye himself does. So he will remain in contention for QB1 numbers all season long. But I do got to go with Justin Fields here. It's close. And I've got Maye ranked higher than like everybody, but there's like a 3-spot gap, I believe, between these two guys for me. Justin Fields, the upside is just legitimate QB1, right? Because of his rushing upside. Fields was put into game manager mode last year, obviously, because that's the way Pittsburgh operates. But it was nice to see him actually be able to operate in a game manager mode. We saw a different version of Justin Fields last year that was, capable of, protecting the ball in terms of interceptions. Fumbles, that's another story. Holding on to the ball too long, that's another story. I don't know if we've solved those issues and whatnot. That's kind of the separator from him as a franchise quarterback, right? But even in game manager mode, he still managed to have an overall QB1 week and 2 other top 12 weeks over the course of like, was it like a 7-game-ish stretch? Somewhere between 6 and 8, I believe. Maybe it was 8-game starter stretch there before they moved on to Russ. For me, that was enough to see, right? His upside provides such a solid floor. And I do actually think he has job security this year, which is what we need from him, like just, year-long job security. So while I'm higher on Maye than consensus, Justin Fields is still the preference and option for me. Question from R. Wilson, not Russell Wilson, on Twitter. What is the under-the-radar player or team that you think will surprise everyone this season and why? I'm going to talk about someone that I've talked about before. It's Brashard Smith, but it's timely, right? Because we had Rashee Rice. Did we talk about Rashee Rice I think that happened after last week's episode. I can't remember. But Rashee Rice, obviously, we're waiting to figure out what the suspension is going to be. And I have loved Brashard Smith all throughout the offseason because when it comes down to it, man, I love a converted wide receiver. I sure do. And when we're looking at him in the context of this Kansas City offense, Andy Reid loves a pass-catching running back. And this is the skill set that they have praised him for this offseason. That's what he does fantastic. And if we're looking at ways to kind of get around, figuring out how to not overly load a guy like Travis Kelce with slot usage to kind of fill what we could potentially use in Rice, Brashard Smith makes a lot of sense there for them to kind of utilize in that way. So I would not be shocked if they do that. Brashard Smith is somebody who I'm just have drafted like a maniac. I mean, I had a 100% hit rate in my dynasty teams. There was like 2 or 3 players that I had a 100% hit rate that I was just not walking out with, that I was in love with, and he was one of those guys for me for sure. Question from Jeff Milliner. Can I trust Sam Darnold to give JSN the ball enough to justify his ADP? We talked about the Seattle Seahawks a little bit in a previous episode. I can't remember which one, but Seattle's offensive line is ranked 30th by PFF heading into the season. I'm worried that they didn't do enough to make a massive leap. Now, they did stuff, right? And if health works and their new first round draft pick, Gray Zabel, works out, maybe they can pull it together, but they have to pull it together. It's a massive concern for me. It's not that I don't trust Sam Darnold. I just don't trust whether or not this offensive line can stay upright, can keep Sam Darnold upright. And that impacts our fantasy players as a whole, but JSN more so than everybody. My fear here is that we get into a situation where if the offensive line is poor, that might result in Cooper Kupp being the highest targeted player in that offense for as long as he's on the field. I would like a little bit more of an ADP discount here. The ADP is aggressive. And, to be fair, when you look at rankings, I know I'm one of those people that's pushing up his ranking in general as well. Again, this is something that I feel uncomfortable with, and I have to see how the offensive line plays before I can truly trust JSN in this offense. So I'm pausing right now on him. My trust level is down, unfortunately. Again, it's not him. It's not Sam. It's the offensive line. When I'm looking at the guys being drafted after him, a Tyreek Hill, who I'm absolutely in love with for a bounce back here, a Garrett Wilson, who I love and endorse with Justin Fields because we know Justin Fields can hyper target one specific player. And we saw with DJ Moore. So there are guys going after him that I just feel a little bit more comfortable with. So I have found myself skipping over JSN right now. If during the preseason, the offensive line and things look good, we get Sam Darnold out there and he's upright for, the quarter that he's in or whatnot, then I'll be back on the track. And in my remaining drafts, I will lean in. But until then, I need to pause on that one. Now, more Seahawks questions from Jerry Nelson. Since the Seahawks cut Fant, is Arroyo a sleeper tight end now? Yes. Despite my concerns with Sam Darnold on the line, I'm still on Elijah Arroyo as a sleeper. I'm actually kind of mad at myself because I was, and there's video evidence. That's why I record those short videos. There's always video evidence of my early season sleepers. So I can't be one of those people that says I was always in, even though there's no evidence of it. Nope. I've always been on Elijah Arroyo from the jump here, people, before the draft. And I love the landing spot, but I was having some residual concern that Seattle was going to be stubborn and give preferential treatment unwarranted to Fant. And they cut him, man. There we go. Arroyo is good to go, in my opinion. I don't have enough shares. I don't have enough shares as I would want here. But the good news is that, again, he's a tight end. ADPs don't rise aggressively on tight ends. So, yeah, if you're looking for sleeper tight ends, especially in tight end premium leagues, this is one that you have to target here because Arroyo's build is straight up more of a receiver. Right. That's what he's going to be utilized in theory. There's no clear wide receiver 3 here. Wide receiver 2 is Cooper Kupp with injury and age risk. So we need to be interested in Elijah Arroyo for sure. Question from G-Dub, Taylor's version. Who is the year's rookie dart throw? Who is this year's rookie dart throw? Third round Dynasty rookie draft pick or later, who will turn into an elite fantasy asset. I am very consistent. I have talked about Brashard Smith. I've talked about Kyle Monangai. I've talked about, and maybe elite asset is a little bit of a stretch here, but Chimre Dike. These are guys that I love as my late round dart throws. Third round or later in rookie dynasty picks, but someone who I have not talked about enough, I think, that I want to reiterate here is Dante Thornton. There is no true wide receiver 1 in Vegas. Jacoby Myers, who I do like a good bit. Again, we have talked about, I guess maybe I need to rename this episode is wide receiver 2 praise episode, Tera defending wide receiver 2s and saying, give wide receiver 2s a chance and respect them, put respect on their name. Because Jakobi Meyers is a wide receiver 2 that I respect, man. I like him. He is a safe little pick there to finish as a low-end wide receiver 2, give you some upside, get some decent volume there. But I don't think he's the right lead guy here to truly just take over the offense there, right? We've got Brock Bowers, who is essentially the de facto first look, but Jakobi Meyers is actually very close in terms of targets. We don't need to undersell him here. Very solid pick. But when we're looking at filling out the rest of the offense and the fact that this ball is going to be spread around a little bit more behind the first option of Brock Bowers, I loved Jack Besh during the offseason. But what I have been hearing is that the role in the slot is unfortunately full of bodies, right? They have way too many bodies in the slot in Vegas. And unfortunately, that doesn't benefit Jack Besh. The opportunity in Vegas in terms of receiving opportunities is on the outside here. And that is where Dante Thornton fits in. And it sounds like he has a very clear path to a starting role. So we've got a late round rookie receiver here, is going to potentially be a starter here. We got updates here from training camp from people, from the beat writers physically at training camp saying that in 11 personnel, the lineup was Thornton, Tucker, and Meyers. We need to pay attention to this, people, because Dante Thornton has looked fantastic this offseason. And if he's going to have a starting position, we have to remember here, we're being a bit harsh on Vegas and looking at from them for what they've been in the past. They've got an upgraded coaching, management, quarterback, personnel in general. There's stuff to love here. And that is one who I'm very excited about as a little late round dart throw, because that's something that could hit as a nice little deep threat there for Geno Smith to just take advantage of. So yeah, that one's one that I'm want to hit on because we're leaning in there. We got two more mailbag questions here because good Lord, the mailbag questions came in strong this week. I appreciate you guys so much. From Daryl Payne, will DK Metcalf have the patience to deal with Aaron Rodgers or end up checking out? I love this question because oddly enough, I have not talked about DK Metcalf at all this season, or Aaron Rodgers. Like I just have to wash it over. I have not talked about them at all. And I do have a very clear stance on this. The last couple of seasons have been rough and below expectations for DK Metcalf, but last season in particular, that was rough to watch. We watched in real time DK Metcalf yield his wide receiver 1 role to JSN. Oh my God. But if you have to yield your role as wide receiver 1 to somebody, I mean, losing it to a first round draft pick that had extremely high expectations and was once viewed, when he was in his younger years in college as a potentially truly elite prospect. I mean, if you're going to lose to somebody, that's probably the one to lose to. So no disrespect to DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf getting beat out by JSN was not the worst thing in the world and not a massive indication of him just falling off. It's not like he got beat up by Tutu Atwell, right? So I don't believe Aaron Rodgers is the best solution for Pittsburgh, but he's got no problem locking in on his favorite target here. There's clear development in terms of, Aaron Rodgers signed and even before then he was spending time with DK Metcalf, I believe. So there's clear rapport that's growing here. They're spending time together. They're gaining chemistry. Metcalf is the first look there. He's going to be the first overwhelming look. Volume is going to be coming his way. Even though we know the Steelers want to be run heavy, Rodgers is going to throw and Metcalf is going to be the big beneficiary here. Again, wide receiver 2. Very ADP friendly, and he will pay off at his ADP, potentially exceed it. We do have a comment here from, well, that was not the one I was trying to pull up. He gave multiple comments. He said Jaden Blue is a superstar, but the one I wanted to show was Courtland Sutton over DK Metcalf. I agree with you on that one. Courtland Sutton, I'm well documented on that one. If I'm wrong, y'all are going to clip it like a maniac here. But hey, I'm willing to be wrong for Courtland Sutton. I am heavy invested in Courtland Sutton. A true believer there in Courtland Sutton. And so, yes, I am. I have Courtland Sutton ranked over DK Metcalf. I've drafted him over DK Metcalf time and time again. But like you, I am above consensus on that. A lot of people don't feel the same way about Courtland Sutton. They'll get on board. I think it's the residual feeling like last year was an outlier year. But again, as I defend my Terry McLaurin, that is how I'm going to defend Courtland Sutton. There are wide receivers who have had a career of just being just demolished by quarterback rooms that have just been wildly ineffective. And unfortunately, he's been one of those guys. So saying that it's an outlier year when he finally gets a competent quarterback in Bo Nix, I know there's fear of Bo Nix second year regression here, but Denver overall is a fantastic team. Solid offseason there. Defense is just flat out stupid. As a whole, I there's so much for me to love about Courtland Sutton. So while I do think that DK Metcalf will be fine as a wide receiver too. Courtland Sutton to me has a lot more upside. So that one is a clear checkbox every single time for me. I walk away with Courtland Sutton. I do everything I can to walk away with Courtland Sutton in my drafts there. There's so much to love about Bo Nix. I get that people are scared of the potential regression there because of the trauma that we face with CJ Stroud. But it is a different situation. Bo also had the ability to provide some upside with his legs as well. So not that CJ's immobile, but Bo will, assert himself as a runner in a different way there. So two different situations there. But yay, DK Metcalf. Again, we're good there. We're good there. One more question here from BMMO, Been to the Zeno. What is your favorite Ozzy Osbourne song? Rest in peace. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know a single Ozzy Osbourne song. But I am, as you guys know, I'm a reality TV show junkie. So of course I watch the Osbournes. Are you kidding me? So for what it's worth, I do have some fond memories of Ozzy Osbourne's reality TV show there. Unfortunately, I do not know any of the songs there. I had intended to do some sleepers here as well. One that I will talk about here just super quick here, because we've talked a lot about guys like Jaden Blue, Brashard Smith, Will Shipley. I sent out a question here on Twitter asking people to drop two players, in terms of late round dart throws, your favorite late round dart throw. We've talked about a good bit of them throughout the show, and then a late round guy that you think or no one should be drafting, that everybody else is drafting. And one of the players that caught my eye, that someone said their favorite late round dart throw, was interesting for me. It was Pat Bryant. Because again, as you guys know, I just talked very glowingly about my boy Courtland Sutton. And while I do not believe for 1 second that there will be anybody competing with Courtland Sutton, there's definitely room for a secondary option to pop up here for sure. So when we're looking at the potential of Pat Bryant here, I think there could be some interest here. We did see Marvin Mims step up, particularly towards the end of the season, showing some touchdown equity. He's a different size and play style than Courtland Sutton. So again, I like to look at pairings and how well wide receivers go together. They do make a lot of sense. We had Devon Vele step up and have some moments. Do remember he was a rookie, so sometimes don't judge, especially with these, certain coaches, right? Certain coaches, Sean Payton being one of them as well, tend to be a little bit more apprehensive with rookies. So Vele had some interesting moments last season. It's possible that he could develop as well. And then we've also got Evan Ingram here, who is actually my favorite for someone who can potentially step up as a secondary option in this offense. But the reality is that there's no solidified options, so it's really wide open. Any of those guys that we talked about could step up, and Pat Bryant could also get there as well. I can see a path to a consistent role here, and the ADP is super low risk. So in terms of, kind of another pick your poison, Denver's secondary options is a good one to take stabs at, because I do believe we'll see Bo Nix continue to develop. It'd be nice to get a steady secondary option there opposite of Courtland Sutton. And so there's a lot of good options here that you could stick your teeth into. But that wraps it up here. And I appreciate all of your comments in the chat. Chat was super active. Thank you for joining in, Uncle Ted. I see all your comments here for sure. These are good ones here. Gave me some Ozzy Osbourne song recommendations here. A little bit about Denver, Devon Vele, Evan Ingram here. Awesome content. Thank you guys so much for joining in. I appreciate all the questions. Again, if you have any questions that you want to submit before, because we are a mailbag show, right? You can just tag me on Twitter. That's the best place to reach me, real anywhere, any social media. I'm on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, but always Twitter is like the easiest way to tag because it just pops right up in the notifications, right? But you can submit them there. You can also follow me at It's Tera Time on literally any single platform. Posting a lot of content. We're ramping up here, trying to get stuff out daily because we're good to go. Draft season is coming up and things are going to start getting super, super crazy here. So again, make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast on all platforms, the Dearmas Fantasy Show, if you're not already subscribed, and also make sure that you're subscribed to Player Profiler. All the Player Profiler channels and social media. We go live from the Player Profiler Now channel on YouTube, in case you're wanting to get notifications on that, because there are lots of shows that are going live daily. So tons of content for you to tune into. So that's also another great one for you to subscribe to. But other than that, I appreciate you guys also for tuning in. Thank you so much. Have an amazing week. My God, I got emails about the Hall of Fame game coming in here. So we're so close to football, guys. It's right around the corner here. Stay tuned. Talk to you guys later.
Hey, I want to take a moment to thank you for tuning in. It's important to me that all of our media be free. This is only possible because of you allowing a true independent sports media enterprise to thrive unlike any other in the business. So please subscribe to the All In Package to continue to make all of this possible, to ensure that all of our stats, information, data, content is available to you, especially you, the people that get the site and get the show.